Well, hello there. Today I'm going to do something a little different. As you see, there's a YouTuber called Captain Astronaut, and he has made a video series talking about, to him, why Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a disappointment. And as a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 fanboy, you can imagine that I don't really like this video. It's not a bad video. No, it's a really good video. It's really well edited, and the audio is great. But the content inside the video, I'm not a big fan of. Now, don't get me wrong. People can have opinions, but if you don't like Xenoblade 2, that's great. You like what you like, I'll like what I like. We are all different. But when someone makes a video bashing one of my favorite games, I want to make a response. I want to defend the game I like. Also, this response is going to be over his second video about the Xenoblade 2. Part 2, not Part 1. That's mostly because his first part was a lot worse than this second part. A lot of his arguments were shallow, and he nitpicks much more in his first part than this part, although he still nitpicks in this part. And the other reasons for not doing Part 1 is because someone already did it for me. Yeah, there's a comment on this first video where someone wrote a long, and I mean a long comment countering everything he said in the video. I mean everything. So yeah, kind of felt no need for do the first part. As well, I want / have no hate towards Captain Astronaut. I actually really like all his other content, and heck, he made a video about Astral Chain. I freaking love Astral Chain. No one talks about that game, and it's a shame that no one does. So yeah, no hate to you, Captain. I'm just defending one of my favorite games. So I guess we should get started. I'll be doing this kind of strange. I'll play Captain's video, then if there is something he says, and I'll talk about it. And Captain, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I kind of am stealing your video. I just think this is the only way I can do it and not mess everything up. Also, I'm using a headset mic, and my editing skills are basically non-existent. So this video is going to be a lot worse than his on a technical standpoint, and it's going to be a hard time to sit through. But it still took me a long time, so I'd appreciate it if you watch to the end. The script, and again, the script in this video is like 100 times more the words than most of my school essays, so I would like you to try to watch the whole thing. But anyways, again, no hate to you, Captain. I feel like we'd actually be good friends if we were met in real life, because I just think we would be. You like a lot of things I like, it seems, but it looks like we disagree about this game. Anyways, he starts out on the sunken ship, and we'll just go off from here. Like I said, I'm basically playing your video and talking about it. I'm sorry, I'm basically copy and pasting your video, but I'm trying to cut out and paste as many things as I can here and there to make it my own.
And journey through to find the sealed Aegis Pyra. Rex touches her sword first and accidentally bonds with it. The only way to break the bond between Blade and a driver is for the driver to die, so Jin quickly kills Rex. Short game, right? I fucking wish. This would potentially serve as a great teaching moment about the rules between blades and drivers. However, it's immediately undercut when Pyra talks to Rex's ghost and revives him. This is something the game does often, which in my opinion hurts the story. It'll set up the rules to its world, but then the first example it gives is an exception to that rule. After Rex wakes up and thinks he's at a Formula 1 track,
Good joke.
Rex and Pyra go fight Malos, the main villain, in a tutorial battle. Which brings me to my next gripe, using fights against the main villains as tutorial battles. At this point in the game, it's not that big a deal, since it's only like an hour in and you're still learning the mechanics, but at multiple points through the game, it uses fights against the main antagonists as tutorials. The game amps up the fight and then ruins all the tension it builds up by just having you go through tutorials. So right before
Not much to say here. We all know tutorial battles suck. I'm not going to try to defend these. You have every right to complain about this one. So go right ahead. The tutorials do suck.
Malos is the game's main bad guy. You fight this asshole 5 fucking times, including as the final boss. And 2 of those fights are tutorial battles that you can't lose, and halfway through 2 of the fights, they become unlosable story battles. Rex should have started the game as a driver, and Malos should have fought Rex before he died. I think it would have made more sense both through gameplay and storytelling. From a gameplay perspective, at no point for the rest of the game do you not fight with a blade, nor do you have the option to, so why play through the first hour without one? Why not have your crab fighting tutorials at the start focus on what blades and drivers can do?
Because not every person in this game is a driver. Drivers maybe make up 10% of all the people in this game. You can see that throughout it. And one of the main points of Rex's character is that he's a noob driver who doesn't really know anything about drivers and blades. You can see it in his expression when he meets them when he gets his big job. This just would not have worked.
From a story perspective, let's say for instance Rex starts with, I don't know, a Brona, even though she has literally the most annoying voice in the entire cast, which is really saying something for this game.
Traitor, traitor, traitor! Yeah, you're one of the baddies now, you villain.
Say Rex inherited Obrona from his dead parents or something. Maybe they have a conversation at the start and Rex asks her about his parents, but she has to remind him that she doesn't remember them, setting up the blades don't remember things from their previous lives after they're reawakened.
But we're already shown this all throughout the game. Putting it at the beginning, I don't think would have done anything different at all.
Rex, using a Brona, fights Malos in gameplay and isn't strong enough. He does like 2 damage and loses to Malos in the gameplay and the story. A Brona returns to her core crystal, establishing that when a driver dies, the blade returns to their core crystal, rather than what happens in the actual game where the driver dies and then their soul is warped to the ending of Majora's Mask.
But again, there's a reason for this. It's the Aegis. It's the most powerful blade, and it's not a normal blade. Again, this is not true for all the blades in the game because this is the Aegis. You're just trying to compare normal blades and the Aegis, but they are very different, and the game tells you that all the time. Well, do I need to show you the example from earlier?
Rex dies, and you don't see what happens to the core. You then fight Malos again with Pyra this time, and you visibly do like, I don't know, 100 damage. And through gameplay, the player's like, wow, the Aegis is really powerful. Much more powerful than the average blade. In the actual game, you have no frame of reference for how powerful Pyra is, because she's the first blade you have. The game tells you how powerful the Aegis is in cutscenes, but it doesn't show you through gameplay.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to say here. Alright, the crab fight tutorial would not work and should not work with Rex being a driver already. And you say you don't like the tutorials, well you're gonna be in a long one if Rex already has a blade with him. There's a lot in this combat system, a whole lot. Rex having a blade at the start would be so overwhelming for a new player. Some say it already is super overwhelming, so this wouldn't work already. As much as I like your example of showing how strong she is through gameplay, that was a good example. It doesn't really work because that exact thing happens when you unlock Mithra. You see how much stronger she is through gameplay. Pyra is supposed to be the weaker version of Mithra, so this really doesn't make sense. This already happens. Rex having a blade wouldn't work as a narrative perspective either. Rex is supposed to be the noob 16-year-old driver. He doesn't fully know how blades/drivers work, let alone the Aegis. So when he gets the Aegis, he becomes overly confident, and that leads to many of his mess-ups later in the game.
Anyways, after that battle, even though you beat him during the gameplay, the game pretends that the stretch of gameplay you just played through didn't actually happen. Get used to that. And then at one point, Pyra picks up the sword and starts fighting Malice herself, which is confusing, because I thought that blades don't really fight, they empower their drivers to fight. During gameplay, the blade just stands behind you and pees on you and only jumps in during special attacks. But then in the cutscenes, she's back at it again like it's Krispy Kreme. Or is this another one of the exceptions to the rules about blades because she's an Aegis? You see where my confusion about this game setting up its rules comes from? Also, the burning sword audio is in sync during the cutscene, but always out of sync during gameplay. It's not like you use that attack about 200 times during the course of the game. Nia and Dromark realize that they're fighting for the obvious bad guys and help save you, and then your dragon grandpa flies in and saves all 4 of you. You get transported to Gormott, you finally get to walk around in a more open area. Here you learn 2 new mechanics introduced in this game, field skills and collection points, that are terrible. I'll explain them more later. You find Dragon Grandpa, who took too much damage while flying away and dies from his wounds. It's a really sad scene where the sad music is playing and Rex and Pyra are super sad and Azurta says his final goodbyes. It really makes you begin to feel for the character's struggles. Just fucking kidding! Azurta immediately revives himself with little explanation, contradicting the rules of the Blades and Titans life cycle that gets talked about later. This scene is played for laughs. Well, laughs. Azurta also does nothing for the rest of the game besides make the occasional pervy comment and withhold really important information about the bad guys since he was there during the prequel DLC. Rewrite, Azurta should have fucking died here, or the player should have done something to revive him. Having the death of a character happen early on in the story doesn't really affect the audience that much. However, seeing how the surviving characters react and seeing how their decisions are affected by that death set up the character's motivations for the story. It would have been more impactful for Rex to realize, oh, this was partially my fault because had I researched this job properly before taking it, which Azurta literally warned me about, then maybe this could have been prevented and he'd still be alive. I need to be more responsible in the future so that this doesn't happen again. Instead, Rex learns nothing from this, the scene is played for unfunny jokes, and Rex continues to be the same static character. This could have also been used to teach the player that when a Titan dies, they release core crystals, and then you could have that crystal turn into baby Azurta who rides in Rex's helmet, and he has no memory of his previous life, one of the most important themes of this game. That way when Jin gives his big villain speech about how he doesn't like that cycle, the player can be like, oh yeah, I remember that happening. He has a point. You see what I mean when I said this story feels like a first draft? Or
I agree with this. Some of it, at least. You see, the thing is, you're right. I really do think Gramps should have died here. As much as I like him riding in your helmet and all the perverted comments he says, I feel like it would have been better for the story and Rex's character if Gramps did actually die. But then you lead it to shit on Rex for no reason and no real example. And the thing is, you do this a lot. You do this twice in this segment, actually, and I'm fixing to get to the second part. But you say one of the reasons why you don't like Rex's character and why people don't understand that is because Rex didn't apologize here. Now, you do this a lot, and that is you're just saying this without actually context or what actually happened at all. See, if I was a person who never played Xenoblade 2 and I saw this video, I would agree with you. I would be like, dang, Rex is a terrible character, a terrible person. He didn't apologize for almost getting his grandpa killed. But that's not what really happened at all, now is it? And you know this. The actual cutscene, Rex says why he doesn't apologize. He clearly states it, a reason why. You might not like that reason, but he clearly does have a reason why he doesn't apologize. And I don't know why, you're literally lying. You're just giving no context, and you say that Rex doesn't apologize, and that's one of the reasons why you don't like him, but yeah, he doesn't apologize, but he gives his reasons why. And the reason why is because he cares for Pyro, and he didn't want Pyro to fall into the bad guy's hands. I'm gonna play the clip for you in a second so everyone can see, but you do this all the time in this video. It's like you cut things out just so you can fit your idea of this game being bad and not the way you like it to be.
Can you not muster even a shred of sincere remorse?
Sorry, but I can't.
What?
If I hadn't taken the job, they'd have got their hands on Pyra.
Rex.
I couldn't let that happen. No way. They can never take her.
Oh boy, and then there's this part. Alright, so this is one of the worst things you've done. Hayes is literally right there. Your point is that the characters could relate more to what Jin said if Azurta died. But Hayes died. She was an example of this happening. Like you said, a dead blade is right there, serving as something the player can relate to regarding Jin's speech. You act like this doesn't happen, again, so you can fit your idea of this rewrite, and so the game looks worse than it is. Yes, it would have been the same, even if Gramps would have died. It's like you make no sense. Hayes is dead. She already serves as something that the players can look for regarding Jin's speech. You just take the context out of it completely, and you just lie. You're basically lying. I mean, you have the balls to put her on the cutscene you showed, so just own up to it.
Say that Pyra can use her vaguely defined Aegis powers to help him, but you need to collect some ether items first. You gotta go burn a tree in your way, and that's how you do the field skill tutorial. Then you collect the items, that's how you do the collection point tutorial. That way, the player A does tutorials that tie into the story, B better understands that, hey, this is an exception to the life cycle, C, the Aegis has some really special powers, she's a very special blade, and D, the player is more attached to this character because you actually did something to save them. And Rex can still learn the lesson since it was a close call, and Baby Azurta can still ride around as his helmet. Boom, fixed your game.
Yeah, no, you didn't fix the game. You didn't fix the game at all. Okay, all the stuff you say here that would have happened if Azurta died already happens in the game. A, tutorials tie into the story. I'm pretty sure the tutorials later on do tie into the story. They do, in the battles and everything. It's a terrible way to do it, and the example used is better, but that does happen. The tutorials do tie into the story. We already know, then B, it's an exception, not a rule. We already know this is an exception, though. Azurta told us. It's like, he told us that not every Titan can do it. It's an exception to the rule. C, we see how strong the Aegis powers is. Well, we know this. We know that Aegis got that magic because it's shown throughout the whole entire game. It's told to us multiple times. And D, the player will grow more attached to Azurta. I think this is the same as C. The player grows more attached to Azurta by playing the game. But I will say, overall, I do agree that I think Azurta should have died here. These things you mentioned probably would have helped the story out to be a little bit better. But I'm also trying to show you that the same thing does actually happen.
Too many cutscenes. You see, I actually like cutscenes in video games, but in this game, they are too long and there are too many. Cutscenes can be a great way of storytelling and getting the player invested, and the cutscenes in Xenoblade 2 are really well done. Some of them are even made by Digital Frontier, the same studio that makes some of those flashy HD Smash Bros. Trailers. And even saying that there's too many is an inaccurate statement. It's more so that it feels like there's too many because the gameplay to cutscene ratio is all over the place. A lot of the individual cutscenes feel a little overindulgent and overly long. You'll often watch 3, 4, 5 cutscenes in a row before you go back to playing the game, especially at the beginning and ending of chapters. Or you'll watch a cutscene, take like 10 steps forwards, and then watch another cutscene. But it really feels like there's too many because I personally am not getting invested in this story. I tried, y'all, I really did. But between the hokey dialogue and predictable plot and characters I just don't gel with, I never got into it.
Well, this part is kind of subjective. People like cutscenes, other people don't like cutscenes. I really can't do much arguing on this part, but there is some stuff I really want to point out about what you said. So let's hear what you said at this timestamp. Well, that would make sense, don't you think? Each chapter sets up a new part of the story, and each chapter also ends that part. And the core gameplay is in between. That doesn't seem odd to me. So why is that you don't like cutscenes at the beginning and end of chapters, and complain about not playing the game? When you had a whole full chapter to play through after the beginning cutscenes. I mean, yes, the cutscenes are long in the beginning and end of chapters, but that's not bad, is it? I mean, if you actually think about it, which you clearly didn't, the long cutscenes are there to start a new plot point, and then after the cutscene, you play the game's new plot point, like most video games. Maybe if you actually played the game after the cutscenes and did side quests and battled monsters, you wouldn't feel so bored by the story cutscenes. And again, you're the only one I've ever heard with the complaint that the cutscenes are too long. Like, I'm so confused. You say that the ratio is bad, but there's so much gameplay to do in between these cutscenes. It's either you're just not exploring, or I don't know. I don't know how you're playing this game. Oh yeah, I also want to talk about how you say it's predictable. I mean, I guess every story is different for other people, but I guess you 100% knew that Nia was a blade, that there was an American city under the Cloud Sea, that Klaus was the architect, and all the other twists. But I guess you saw right through all of those, huh? And I'm just saying this now. It's not like Xenoblade Chronicles 1 wasn't predictable. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I love Xenoblade Chronicles, but it was really predictable in the first half of the game, at least for me. And I guess that's just the same for you, but for this game, not the first one.
Pretty soon you make it to Gormott proper. It's a big grassy area, and it's the first area that feels like a big open area. Stop me if you've heard this one before. There's no denying that the area looks great. This game is way better than like Pokemon Sword and Shield, for instance. And it's cool that you can see the Titan's head in the distance. But at the same time, compared to the previous games, the areas in Xenoblade 2 feel chunky. Wait, no, that's not the right word. They're in chunks. They're segmented. In the previous games, the areas were much more expansive. Your first time in an area, you had no idea how long they went on for, which would make you want to explore and find out. Plus, you could often see other areas in the distance. But in Xenoblade 2, they're all separated islands, and they feel smaller because you can look in one direction, see its head, look in the other direction, see its butt, and that's the whole area. Plus, a lot of the Titans later in the game are indoors, so you can see all 4 walls of the area and be like, well, that's pretty much the whole place. There's also no sign if the enemies here will attack you on their own or not. The previous 2 games had icons telling you if the enemies would attack if you got too close or if they saw you. It was a good way of planning out your route and deciding which enemies to avoid. Xenoblade 2 replaces that with nothing.
First of all, you kind of did this game dirty here. When you were in Gormont, you stopped facing the biggest tree and had the camera facing in a downward angle. Now, that's how a lot of people play their games and how their camera is. But when you're talking about the map and the world, usually people look around, like with the map, like look around with the camera. You know what I mean? Anyways, you make it sound like it's a bad thing that you can see the end in the beginning of a map. I watched this part over and over again, and I really can't tell where you're coming from. You think it's bad because you see the whole map, and in other Xenoblade games, you can't most of the time. Now, just me, I'm not being able to see where I'm going is kind of annoying, but it didn't bother me that much. But my main point, just because you can see the start and end, or all 4 walls, doesn't make it a bad/small map. Yes, you can see all the four walls in Araya, but Araya is still huge. Like, if you drop to the bottom of Araya, there's still so much to explore. Just because it has four walls might make it look smaller to you, but it's not. And having the smaller looking maps helps play into the story if you ever actually paid attention to it. This is why the smaller maps, like you're mentioning here, the chunky maps, actually are amazing. Because the whole point of this game is Elysium, the world, is dying. All the Titans are dying and sinking to the bottom of the Cloud Sea, with all the life forms on them. We as players have shown this not even an hour into the game. So when we as players travel to different Titans with Rex in the game, we can see how the Titans have a limited amount of space, which plays perfectly into the narrative of all the Titans dying and living space running out. Anyways, that's all I have to say here. It's just your complaint about the small maps really holds no water. I just don't understand it. I understand maybe you as a person not liking the small maps, but as a critique video about this game, I don't think it should be here. You make it sound like whatever you think is bad automatically means it's super bad. I mean, it's not. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's terrible. It just means you might not have been a fan of it. And I know that's the whole point of this video, because this is like why you think it's disappointing. But a lot of times, like this one, you make it seem like that's a definitive reason why this game sucks and is bad. That's just not true.
Bit. You then watch a cutscene about blade summoning, but you don't unlock blade summoning yet. They also talk about needing potential to be able to summon a blade. As far as I know, they never fully explain what potential or aptitude entails, even though it ties in one of your party members' entire storyline and motivation. And it's not about being a good person like the cutscene implies, since there are multiple villains and assholes who are drivers too.
I thought this blade summoning cutscene was pretty self-explanatory. They mention you have to have a proper bond with a blade, and wait a second. Yeah, I think I know why. I'm gonna show you the cutscene real quick. Astronaut, ma'am, what are you doing? You make it seem. No, you say the cutscene implies that all you need to be is a good person, when we as the players know that's just not true. Because it was clear in that cutscene that the nice cat man had a purpose and wasn't just nice. He clearly had 3 siblings he was a caretaker of, and he was probably going to try to be a driver so he could better protect his family. It was pretty clear before he was cut off by the mean Catman, who clearly did not have a purpose in bonding with a blade, unlike the nice Catman, leading him to die. So yes, bad guys do have blades, because good or bad, if you have a strong purpose and a strong aptitude, you can bond to one. Now, they do not really explain what this potential entails, but like you said, it gets more fleshed out throughout the game.
You then do 2 back-to-back boss fights where you fight a bunch of soldiers and then you immediately fight Bridget, and you lose and die and have to go grind levels. At least that's what happens to me and other people I've seen play this game for the first time. Everyone dies in this fight if you didn't grind levels or explore a bunch earlier. Maybe you were originally supposed to have another blade here, and the fight was balanced around that, which is why it's so hard now. Usually how the main story in Xenoblade games works is, you never have to grind levels as long as you fight most of the enemies between you and your destination. Otherwise, if you skip too many, you'll probably be underleveled for the next story boss fight. However, with this first boss fight, when I was in my second playthrough, I remembered it being a pretty big difficulty spike, so I fought all the enemies and still grinded levels a little bit before entering Torgoth on my second playthrough, and still fucking lost.
To me, this just sounds like you're bad. I mean, I'm not trying to be toxic or anything, but it just sounds like you're bad at this game, that you somehow died a second time with beating all those monsters. There's a lot of bad things you say about this. First of all, who else did you see that also died to that battle? Like, I don't remember anyone really dying to that battle unless they don't really understand how to play the game. I mean, blame that on the bad tutorials, sure, I'll get behind that, but I did not see a lot of people die here. If they did, they died once and then were able to win the second or third time. You just seem like you're really bad. But then you say, oh boy, then you say how the main story in Xenoblade games make it so you have to grind levels. Make it so you don't have to grind levels. This not may be what you're going for, but it makes it seem like any Xenoblade game ever has to follow this rule setup. You really make it seem like every Xenoblade game has to be the same and follow this rule. I have my reason for why you think this, but I'll save that for the end of the video. Anyways, this rule you set up about grinding, it's still true. During my first playthrough of this game, I never grinded once, not once. I grinded some towards the end and the middle. And yes, there were occasional hard boss fights, but I never had hard enough where I had to go grind levels, or I felt like I had to go grind levels. So it sounds like to me, like I said just a second ago, you're just bad. Mostly because you're the only person I've ever seen that lost to this boss multiple times. Like, actually, please tell me who has lost to this multiple times. Because I've seen a lot of playthroughs of this game, and you're the only person who complains about this fight. To me and others watching, it just looks like you don't understand the combat system. Either because you spent too much time trying to compare it to the first game, or you don't know how to use the combat system properly. Those probably both correlate. And my second point to you saying that you don't have to grind as much is, did you finish Xenoblade Chronicles? Because oh my gosh, Lorithia had the hardest difficulty spike in almost any game I've ever played. And I'm being serious here. I had to go grind so much because of that stupid Lorithia boss. And here's a YouTuber called Snugboy. He's really good. He made a video called Xenoblade Chronicles is the best JRPG ever made. And it's a really good video, but this is one of his parts of it and what he has to say.
And difficulty. Remember way back when I said I never finished the game on the 3DS? Well, the game kinda kicked my ass. I barely was a high enough level to keep up to scrap, and instead of doing the side quests, which again were kind of hard to track in that version, I would just grind on monsters for ages and ages until I was a high enough level. Dude, I hate grinding. I only kept going so I could see his beautiful smile. For the most part, I got through the game with only a few hiccups, and generally a game should follow this progression of difficulty, where you're getting your ass kicked just enough to still be having fun, but not getting butthurt about it. Xenoblade does this really well right up until the very end where it spikes up tenfold out of nowhere. Okay, real quick, I'm about to show a late game boss. It is kind of a spoiler, but if you know nothing about the game or you're right at the start, it won't make sense at all to you. But I don't know, maybe just skip forward a bit if you don't want to see it. Anyways.
You'll pay for your insolence.
No, I'll pay for you to shut up! Dude, Lorithia is easily the most bullshit part of this whole game. Here's this boss that just comes out of absolutely nowhere to destroy you and your little party. If you look up tutorials online, basically everyone agreed unanimously, yeah, fuck this boss. I got all the way up to here in the 3DS and then just couldn't get past it. Dude, fuck this boss. I know some of you would be like, well, it's your fault for only playing a Shulk, Run, and Shala the whole game. And yeah, It is my fault. But those three are the dream team, dude. I ain't breaking them up to use Dunban, dude. Fuck Dunban, he's a lefty. Ew!
This was easily the most difficult battle for me, and for pretty much anyone I knew. Everyone I knew had to grind here. Everyone I knew just had so much trouble. And
So yeah, I have no idea why you're saying this, because that's just not true. You do have to grind in Xenoblade games. It does happen. Maybe you were just a god at the original Xenoblade and never had to grind, but you do have to grind in Xenoblade games. It is a thing.
Story. So after grinding levels, you fight the soldiers, then fight Bridget, who's a blade, and it's weird how a blade can fight without a driver, especially at the beginning of the game where you're still establishing the rules of your world to the player. But
Pyra literally fought Malus at the first chapter of this game. Oh, you're giving me a migraine, dude.
she's apparently so powerful that she can just do that. And thank goodness subtitles are on by default because you can't hear any of what Bridget says over the background music in the cutscene.
My driver is otherwise engaged at present. I am here.
You can turn up the cutscene volume. Look in settings before you complain.
What is this, one of my videos? After going back and redoing the boss battle, once again the cutscenes act like the previous battle did not just happen, and Nia and Dromar get captured by something that not a single Splatoon player has ever heard of.
There isn't much to say here besides saying that your joke was not as funny as your first one. You complain about how you win the battle but lose the cutscene. I can't really say much about this. I mostly agree with you here. It is kind of annoying when this happens in the game, but not as annoying as I think you make it out to be. But I will say the two soldiers did run off towards the beginning or end of the cutscene. I can't remember. And they went to say they said they were going to go grab a new weapon, and then they come back and they shot Nia with the Ethernet and Dromar. So it was something totally out of the player's control, and you weren't fighting them with Ethernet before. You were just fighting them by themselves. So me personally, I don't have a problem with this, but I can see why you do.
But then, Tora the Nopon saved Rex and Pyra. Here's a question. Why did Tora the Nopon and Torna the group of bad guys have similar sounding names? You don't give two completely unrelated things similar sounding names if they have literally nothing to do with each other. This is literally a beginner writer's mistake.
Alright, this actually comes from a comment on your YouTube video about this part. A similarity between Torna and Tora is not present in the Japanese, which is the script that the overseas writers see. This similarity was the translators doing. When I'm reading this or saying this right now, I do not remember the person who commented this, but I will put them on screen if I find them. I will look for you, so if it's not there, I could not find you, but you're in the comment section. Anyways, I thank you for clearing this up. Anyways, in the Japanese version, Torna is Ira instead. Torna, not Tora. Torna is Ira instead. But since that was a real terrorist group in Ireland, when it was translated to the West, it was changed. The reason for Ira is not because the writers wanted to draw parallels with the terrorists, but because the Titans in Japanese version are named after the 7 deadly sins in Latin. Ira means anger in Latin. Uriah in the Japanese version is Indivia, which means jealousy, so that's why. I did take this from a comment on your video, like I said, but I'm saying this here because you haven't seemed to look at it. So, just clearing this whole Torna thing. It's an easy thing you could have looked at and not put in your video.
You do the cooking tutorial, a mechanic you never have to use for the rest of the game.
Yeah, you're right. You don't have to use it anymore to beat the game. But it's just a cutscene that shows you Pyra can cook. It's just waifu bait material. And you can use this ability from now on whenever you want, just to cook. I don't understand why this is a problem to you. Okay, this lasted like 3 seconds in your video, yes, but you clearly try to make it sound like a problem. You even complain about field skills to progress the story. I hate them too, but you make it sound like here you want to make the player to cook. That would just be another field skill. You make it sound like a problem when it's not really a problem. It's just a light-hearted cutscene for waifu bait. I'm so confused.
And then after another 6 minutes of cutscenes, you walk around the town talking to specific people for information on where Nia is being held. This amounts to the artificial gameplay length thereof, talking to 4 people who say they know nothing important, and the last person gives you all the info you need.
I cut some parts off at the end of this just because to save you guys from some pain. Anyways, what he says here is just not true. You don't have to buy the info off the merchant. You can talk to other people and piece info together like you said, it was just easier to buy it. Like, I even saw a comment talking about this as well. I remember when I was watching this, I was like, I don't think I did it that way. There are other people you can talk to, and you can piece it together. You can just also buy it. So, come on.
Blade summoning. In this game, instead of learning new battle techniques by leveling up or progressing through the story, you instead learn new techniques by summoning a randomly determined new blade from a core crystal, and having them awkwardly stand behind you in combat.
Excuse me? What? You do get abilities from leveling up. That's what the whole entire affinity trees are, and skill points. I do not understand any of this. Also, how the crap does that look awkward? It looks cool having the blade stand behind you fighting like that. You really are just trying to nitpick every little thing about this game, aren't you?
Are everything in this game. They determine what arts you can use in combat, what passive abilities you have during combat, your character's stats in combat, what weapons you can use during combat, your character's role during combat if they're going to be a tank, healer, DPS, or a mixture, what exploration and traversal abilities you can use outside of combat, how many items you get from collection points, what side quests you can do, certain mercenary missions you can accept, what heart-to-hearts you can view. Blades are unique to Xenoblade 2 and are everything in Xenoblade 2. The problem with Blades is that they ruin every single system in this game that they're a part of.
Can't wait to hear what he says about this.
There are common blades which all look more or less the same and are mostly useless. They could have at least palette swapped them to make them match their element, but instead they're all gray. But it doesn't matter because the common blades are all placeholders until you get the unique rare blades, which all look fucking stupid. Obviously design is subjective. There are plenty of people who think that these designs look good. To me, I already talked about how all the female blades are mostly over-sexualized messes, but all of the rare blades designs just look so dumb. They're all a mishmash of colors and a fucking eyesore. Most of these designs wouldn't work in any other video game, and they don't work here either.
Oh no, my ears. Okay, I understand not liking the gacha system, but really, you're joking, right? You think all the blades are eyesores and look terrible? I guess you are right. Art is subjective. How? No, I fail to believe you actually, truly think all the blades look like bad. I don't feel like this is possible. Let me just look up some blades real quick, because I understand you not liking some of the female blades with an over-sexualized style. You're right, some are really bad, but all of them? Most of them look amazing. These are more than a half the rare blades that aren't over-sexualized or cringe, as you like to call it. Let's see, we have, I'll probably not say these right by the way, Percival, Pegas, Azami, Purin, Andreen, Vale, Poppy Buster, Cassandra, Corvin, T. Ellos, Crossette, Sever, Harold, Abrona, and then we have the other Xenoblade characters like Shulk, Fiora, and Elma, and then top it off with some of the coolest blades of Wolfrook and Cosmos. And yeah, she is technically a Xenoblade character. How do you think any of these are eyesores? I'm so confused. And I know I'm not the only one because I also saw a comment on your video where someone was just as confused as me. So maybe art is subjective, but holy hell, the freedom of speech is cool, but shut up.
You know you're in trouble when the most normal looking blades are designed by Tetsuya Nomura, the guy who designs the characters for Kingdom Hearts? Oh no. Of the unique blades, there are 9 male blades and 33 female blades. Keep in mind, blades are artificial life forms that stand behind you during combat, support you, follow your orders, come from rocks, and look like this. This is some of the most figurative and literal objectification of women I've seen in any media. The game isn't making any sort of commentary on sexualization or objectification, it's just doing it.
I'd especially like to hear about your views on women.
Can't really defend this here. Every Xenoblade Chronicles 2 fan that likes this game will admit this game has a lot of flaws. But yeah, I can't say much. The female designs in this game are usually really over-sexualized. Now, I do like some of them. I think some are really good. But yeah, there are a lot that that do suck, yes. And the over-sexualization does suck, and it's a big downside of this game. And a lot of things that happen is most of the blades, like I said, look good, but there's always just one or two that look bad. Those one or two that look bad bring it down for everybody. So yeah, that's all I can say about this.
Fucking hate gacha games. In gacha games, you get spammed with things you do not want in an attempt to obtain the few things you do want. The key for a gacha game system to work is that the player has to see value in the items they received but did not want. That way they'll keep playing it and won't get discouraged when you keep giving them garbage.
But common blades aren't garbage. They do have value. There is good value in common blades. You release the common blades that give you boosters, which you apply to a core crystal and gives you a higher chance of getting a special element. You even say this later on in a second. So yes, and they also you can use them for field skills. So there is uses for common blades. You say this. You even say this and lead on to shit on them. It's like what? They do have uses. I don't understand this part. It's just the uses you don't want. I do agree that it is strange you have to only hold 5 boosters. You didn't say this yet, but you were fixing to. And disclaimer, I did cut out a lot here because he talks about Fire Emblem and stuff and comparing stuff to Fire Emblem Gacha system to this game and all that. Keep in mind he plays a Fire Emblem Gacha game though. But anyways, and but also like I said, I don't want to completely copy everything that he does in his videos. I just don't want to copy and paste his whole video. So that's another reason why I cut some stuff out.
Later in the game, you can send them on mercenary missions to get items, money, and experience points, but you can already send rare blades on those missions, so why would you send a common blade? The only use they'll have is to maybe help fulfill the field skill checkpoint requirements, and oh boy, do I have a lot to say about field skills later. Or you can dismiss them to maybe get a booster, which increases the chance of a certain element the next time you summon more blades. So if you look up online which rare blades you don't have, you can slightly increase your chances of getting them by an unspecified amount. But you can only hold 5 boosters at once, so you have to alternate between the summoning screen and the releasing screen because game design? And the game tries to make you feel bad about releasing your useless blades and having them sound sad. Like it's not my fault you're so poorly designed. I feel like if maybe this game had another year or 2 in the oven, they could have doubled or tripled or quadrupled the number of unique rare blades in the game, reduced the number of core crystals you receive, and gotten rid of common blades altogether. Then every time you summon, you get a new unique blade, rather than 90% of summoning being useless trash. And then you could summon duplicates and you can combine them together to power them up or fill in your affinity chart some more or something.
Like I said, I skipped some stuff in his video because he was talking about Fire Emblem, repeating some of the stuff I said. Besides that, I kept most of it in, and you literally confirmed what I said earlier. Rare blades get boosters, field skills. Like I said, you can say that. I mean, I watched the video. Yeah, but you're still saying this whole time they have no use and they're useless. In a battle sense, I guess they're useless. Yeah, but in a other practical sense, they're not useless at all. I don't know why you say that, but then you say that it'd be better to like double them over time, like keep the game in the oven and double the amount of blades, and like you always get a rare blade when you pull the core crystals and lower the number of core crystals. Anyways, cool. I actually like that idea. I think that would have been much cooler than having the dumb-looking common blades. But then again, you'd probably ruin it for everyone, going on about them looking like off-brand Kmart Pokemon.
Gacha games are essentially loot box systems. They're specifically designed to serve as gambling for children, which is immoral and despicable. They incentivize intentionally bad and cynical game design that's a detriment to the player's experience. They have no valid place in gaming, and I hate them. There's always a chance you'll get the one you want, and the more you pull, the higher the chances increase, so the next one might be the one you want, so keep trying. To the game's credit, there are a handful of blades you get from doing side quests or through story progression, but the vast majority of them are from random chance. But also, the few you do get from side quests, you have to wait several real-world hours till you can actually use that blade. So you go through the multi-part quest, you get your reward, but then you have to wait an unspecified amount of time until you can actually use the quest reward. Why? And some people may think,
oh, well, at least you can't pay real-life money for more core crystals in this game, so it's fine.
2 things. First of all, just because you're nice to a girl doesn't mean she has to have sex with you. You don't score points and get rewarded for doing the thing you're supposed to be doing all the time. So no, the game isn't fine because it doesn't have monetized loot boxes. And secondly, you absolutely can pay more money for more core crystals. If you bought the expansion pass, you start the game with a fuck ton of rare and legendary core crystals, and you get a rare blade literally every other summon. This is part of the reason I liked the game better the second time I played it, because right at the start, I was able to skip the whole gacha game part of it. I got a bunch of rare blades right from the beginning, and I didn't have to summon anymore.
Alright, I'm going to say my last words here because I think this is the last time you talk about the gacha mechanic in this game. I think. You might bring it up later, but I think this is the last section you talk about it. And overall, I do not like the gacha mechanic system in this game. And I agree with you on some of the most stuff you say about the gacha system. But there's some stuff which you're just really is not true. And you also have to keep in mind some people do like gacha games, and I know for a fact that's the reason why some people like this game is because of this wacky gacha mechanic that's in it. There's a streamer called Flyan that played this game and really liked and had fun with the gacha system in it. You also call this system detrimental to the player's experience. I don't know if I cut that out or not. I don't really remember. It might be there. It might not be. But it's not. I think detrimental is a little too far. To me, it's not detrimental at all because you're guaranteed to get blades when you play through this game. There's a pity system put in place. You're guaranteed to get blades. It might be annoying when you pull blades and don't get any, but it's not detrimental, I would say. I think that's really, really strong of a word. Anyways, let's talk about some more stuff you said. I do agree it is kind of stupid having to wait after you get a core crystal from a quest, but it does play into the story. We're shown that when blades are torn to their cores, it goes dark and you have to wait to bond with it again. But overall, I agree with you. Once you get a blade from a quest, you should be able to unlock it right away. But this is another part. Your sex nice girl analogy. If you break it down, that doesn't really help your case at all. If you're nice to a girl, yes, that doesn't mean she'll want to have sex with you. But she is definitely not going to have sex with a mean guy who punched her in the face and took her money for lunch. She is probably going to have sex with a nice guy. Doesn't mean she will, but your chances of it happening are higher. It's the same with this Xenoblade 2 gacha system. It's a lot better than most gacha. It's still gacha, but it's better. Oh, and I'll probably skip some of his video here. He talks about Zelda, turned into a rant about field skills. Doesn't really help with anything. Don't worry, if you ever got into field skills, I'm going to rant with you. God, field skills are bad.
Back to the game. You help Tora finish his robot either by salvaging for the items you need or by paying a shop a large fee. You watch the cutscene of Tora's artificial blade Poppy coming to life, and while it admittedly is a kind of funny scene, it's revealed that Poppy was pre-programmed to be a maid robot, like an anime maid, if you catch my drift. A sex robot is clearly a sex robot.
A sex robot? Really? Never have I once had that thought in my head until I watched this video and you put that inside my head. I am really 95% sure you are the only one that has thought about this. I have never seen anyone say that Poppy was supposed to be a sex robot till today. I thought she was just an anime maid, and Tora had a maid thing going on, like he liked maids, but I didn't think Tora stooped that low to the extent of a sex doll. I mean, just playing the game can show you Poppy and Tora are too pure for that. And come on, you know that's not what it's supposed to be.
Meanwhile, in Xenoblade Chronicles 1...
By the time the air raid siren sounded, a swarm of Mechon had blackened the sky. They ate people and burned our buildings. Me and Juju dedicated ourselves to evacuating the children and elderly.
Meanwhile, in Xenoblade Chronicles X...
They're all dead. You killed them all. In cold blood.
Fortune did not smile upon them today.
Nelson.
Meanwhile, in Xenoblade Chronicles 2...
Poppy? How may I be of service, master?
That was supposed to be a joke, right? Good. I think it was, because there are multiple moments in Xenoblade 2 that are just as dark as the scene you showed, but I think it was just a joke. I mean, you'd have to be stupid to not have that as a joke. Just making sure, though.
Xenoblade 2 problem. Anime? I get that for this game they wanted the story to have a lighter tone, but there's a difference between having a lighter tone and not being able to take the story seriously at all for various reasons. And there's no denying that this game has a lot of anime influences in its style and tone. But Mr. Spaceman, all 3 games were super anime, I hear you say, and you'd be right. But here's my take on it. I sort anime into 2 categories. There's anime, and then there's anime. There's the type that you show to your friends to get them into anime, and then there's the type that you don't want someone to walk in on you watching. It's a spectrum, you know?
Listen, Mr. Spaceman, I love the SOA hate. Really, nice shots. But to be honest, the 3rd season was amazing. You should probably watch it. Anyways, if I had a quarter or a dime for every time someone said that this game was too anime and used that as a complaint, I would be richer than Jeff Cruz or Bezos, or I don't know what the popular kids are. Anyways, every time someone tries to complain about this game, it is anime, anime, anime. Sure, it's more anime than the last two games, and it does suffer from that, but it's not as bad as you imply it does. When talking about anime with Xenoblade 2, people like to talk about 2 to 3 main things: girls with big boobs, hot springs, and Tora with his maid thing going on, and all the little anime tropes like the Nia poster and stuff, and the boob touching. Let's see if I'm right. I'm gonna say this now because I forgot to add it. There's a YouTube video that someone just posted by the time of recording this. It might be two weeks old or something like, or no, like 2 days old. Yeah, 2 days old, and it's called a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Overhated. It's by the Game Shelf. I'm also gonna be linking this video in the description. And he just it's a really good video about why Xenoblade 2 is overhated, which I believe it is. And he's got a section called "Why the Game is Too Anime." He does a really good job just breaking down this stupid argument for it and how it's really dumb. I'm gonna play a little clip from this is too his video. Why I'm just gonna play a clip from his video.
I'd put the first two games in the first category, and Xenoblade 2 has a lot of moments that fall squarely into the second category. Let's have all the women have big honking titties. Let's have a scene where the protagonist touches her chest. Oops. Let's have a hot spring scene right in the main story. Let's have the potato chicken be horny. Why does the chicken have a maid fetish? You can write a character however you want. No one is making you do this. There's nothing wrong with partaking in and liking the second category. Life is short, watch whatever you want. Be the raccoon you were meant to be and dig through that trash. But for me, this 100% definitely is not my thing. And most of my friends who I talk to who do like Xenoblade 2 also have an appetite for trash anime. These are not coincidences. A prerequisite for liking Xenoblade 2 is liking trash anime. And there's nothing inherently wrong with a game being trash anime, but the previous two games weren't trash anime. So why is this one suddenly trash anime?
Ouch. I kind of feel called out right now. If you like trash anime, you're gonna like this game, or you basically kind of say that. Strange, real strange, because I guess trash anime is a thing everyone can notice and tell apart from good anime. I guess people can't have opinions on what they think is trash. See what I'm getting at here? You make it sound like if you like this game, you only like trash anime, and we are somehow below you as a person because we like trash anime. You say we're a raccoon that digs through trash. Like, what? At least that's what I got from your tone. It's like a sin. You just aren't cool enough if you like trash anime in your eyes, because surely it's impossible for someone to like this game that doesn't like trash anime. The two are perfect together. You can't have one without the other. Well, Mr. Spaceman, I hate to break it to you, but some of my favorite anime ever are Attack on Titan and Cowboy Bebop. Two of the anime you showed in your thing. Those trash anime you show in that diagram of yours, although I have watched them, I didn't really like them, besides some of SAO. I'm looking at you, Fairy Tail. God, I hate Fairy Tail. So according to you, I can't be happening. I love the good anime, and I also love Xenoblade 2. But hey, I like anime culture in general, so maybe that's it. I don't know. Anyways, back to the game once again. As you can see, I called all of the things you mentioned. Big boobs, Tora maid fetish, hot spring ladies. On top of it, you called Xenoblade 2 a trash anime game. Oh god, these things you mentioned only happened a total 5 times throughout the game, and at the very beginning, the first couple of chapters. I think I could be very well wrong, but they're mostly at the beginning. I do not think about 5 trash anime moments justify this game being called a trash anime game. Trash anime games do exist, and this is not one of them. Everything is subjective with an art style. This is not a trash anime game.
You go walk around a ship to save Nia. This is where I disagree with a certain praise I often hear for this game, in that all its areas are very good looking. I don't totally agree. There are 4 good looking areas: Gormont, Araya, Leftharium, and Tantol. Maybe Indol too, but it's pretty empty overall. The rest of the areas in the game are a drab looking ship, some caves, a drab looking wasteland, a drab looking wasteland, a drab looking factory, another drab looking cave, some drab looking cliffs, a destroyed city, an empty futuristic Amazon warehouse that you're inside of for the last quarter of the game. I'm not saying that every area in a game needs to look good. I'm saying that if 1/3 of the areas look good and then 2/3 of the areas not so much, I wouldn't say that the whole game looks good, you know? That's not math.
Only 4? Oh no, really? Only four? You think those are the only four good looking areas in this whole long 60 plus hour game? Did you somehow not play through Tantal or care to look around the Trade Guild Tamperia? Also, the Destroyed City, as you called it. It was one of the biggest plot twists in the game, and you just say Destroyed City? It was so cool looking around and exploring the land of Moria, the Destroyed City, ever since you found out it was an American city. Just because the colors don't pop off the screen doesn't mean it's drab. And once again, when you talked about the dry wastelands, as you called them, you had your camera facing towards the ground once again. One of the best things about the areas in Xenoblade games are the sky. Now the sky plays into the overall setting of an area. You just looked at the ground the whole time. Everything you call drab, you do this. You did this. Okay, sorry. You did do this. I'll give you that. But it was like the not very good looking sky. It was over. I think. I don't remember where was it. That was a pretty drab. It's gonna be on screen, but wait, what's that area called? Moradane, yeah. We have the drab quote-unquote strips and factories. What do you mean by drab? Because to me, drab means not much happening, no life around, it just looks like it's there to be there. And going by that, the drab-looking ship and factory aren't drab at all. They all look like there's actually people working there and people living on the ship. And it's not like these places don't have good color either, because especially in the factory, there are some awesome blends of color. Oh, and the second drab-looking wasteland you mentioned? The whole point of that area is to be a drab wasteland. It's a battle zone, which just had a super destructive weapon walking through it. It's supposed to look dull and dark, like all life has been sucked away. Anyways, it's just my 2 cents about it. But like you said, I guess art is subjective, but really, only 4 areas in this game you think look good. Oh man, dude, you're a different breed of human. I've seen so many people play this game, and all of them compliment on every single area. Gosh, you just okay.
In fighting through the ship, you encounter the biggest meme of this game, the Morardane soldiers. Bad battle dialogue. In Xenoblade 2, every battle is audibly a mess. Like in a lot of JRPGs, the characters talk a lot during the battles.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you guys some slack here. This is by far the worst part of the video, and there's something I'm gonna talk about in a sec regarding the part of this section. But the real reason this is the worst part is because it's pointless. This part of the video talks about the battle dialogue and how it's overbearing and annoying, like, every single hater of Xenoblade Chronicles tries to talk about. I'll agree with him to an extent. In some battles it gets really bad. To me personally, I like the battle dialogue because I feel like it gives life to the characters. But that's just me. Okay, though, the real reason this part is pointless is because you can turn it off. Yes, you can turn off the battle dialogue. And the thing is, this information is everywhere on the internet. It's not like no one knows that you can't turn it off. I see everyone knowing this. There are people on your own video who are telling you this in the comments. So I'm pretty sure you know this. You just didn't want to mention it because it didn't help your argument at all. And you could say it's bad because the game doesn't tell you can turn it off. And to that to say, you're an idiot. The game wants to be there. You could just look through the settings or quickly look online to see if there's a way to stop the battle dialogue from playing. It is one of the stupidest arguments from Xenoblade 2 to this day. Anyways, I'm not going to play this part of the video because, like I've shown, it's pointless to do so. But there is something I want to talk about and some things here and there regarding it. Alright, so Mr. Spaceman says, since Rex says this line, we'll beat them with the power of friendship. That it means the game has bad writing. Which is utterly stupid. Anyways, Rex says this. I'm pretty sure this is a quote Rex only says post battles, and he doesn't even say it that much. Yes, this is a terrible line. I will agree. This line is pretty bad, but he does not say it that much. And that does not mean it's bad writing because Rex says one cringy line. You have mentioned one cringy line. You've not mentioned any other writing besides this one cringy line, and then you say, "Oh, yep, bad writing." Like what? If someone actually watches this video and automatically thinks this game has bad writing because Rex says one bad line, that's just sad. You're a sad person. Anyways, another thing that you said is that there is some call and response between the blade and driver, and there's not any between the actual group. And I say, well, that's not true at all. If it was like that, you'd have a lot less audio. There is a lot of call and response between blade and driver, a lot. And there is call and response between the party members. When you revive a party member, it's call and response. When you do blade combo with them, they call and response too. When you do chain attacks, there's call and response there. So yes, there is call and response between party members. I mean, it doesn't really help your argument, but it doesn't really help my argument. I mean, with me saying this, but there is there is call and response there.
After you save Nia and you finally have 3 permanent party members like 3 to 4 hours into the game, on your way out of the ship, you fight a boss who runs around and hides behind his blade after every attack. Keep in mind, you can't move an attack, and you run very slowly during combat. So the fight isn't hard, it's just annoying. Kind of a microcosm of the whole game. And then you watch a cutscene, take 10 steps forward, watch another cutscene, then fight the best character in the game, Morag. And by fight, I mean you beat her in the gameplay, and then the cutscene switches to you getting your ass whooped. Which brings me to ludonarrative dissonance. I define ludonarrative dissonance as what happens in the gameplay doesn't match what happens in the story to such an extent that the player goes, "Oh, come on, what the fuck?" That last part is very important. That's where the dissonance part comes in. But the reasons I'm able to excuse those things is because the game design decisions benefit the player's experience. Breath of the Wild wouldn't be better if you couldn't carry armor and weapons and food and stuff for the sake of realism or whatever. But you know what doesn't benefit the player's experience? Asking them to learn your unintuitive battle system, fighting and winning against the boss to progress, and then telling them that, oh, that battle you just won? No, that didn't actually happen. Here's what actually happened. You see, usually how the interactive medium of video games works is you have your pre-battle scene to amp up the player for the fight. Then you have the player play the game in a section that's representative of the battle, and then you have the resolution, the denouement, the post-battle stuff that happens after they've won, after the player used their agency to triumph over the obstacle you put in their path.
Every single JRPG is different. Makes no sense. Maybe that is what for Xenoblade 1 was, but not every Xenoblade, not every JRPG, I mean. So, like, that's not at all. People make games how they want to make them. They're not going to follow your silly rule.
You know what undermines that flow? Amping the player up for a fight, then having the battle start with yet another fucking tutorial on a random mechanic, or having them win and their reward for winning the game is telling them, oh no, you see here, you actually lost that battle.
You win this battle, the one where Akos/Pyra, the one right here. You do win in the cutscene. It's just that Pyra takes some damage for plot reason. I'm not just saying that. She takes damage so the player can see that. When the Aegis takes damage, Rex does too. But Van Damme comes to stop Akos, making him flee. So yes, you won the battle.
I think the intent might have been to reward the player with a cool animated cutscene to watch after they beat the boss, and it'd be one thing if it was like a cool finishing move, but the cutscene just keeps going on and on and on, and the player is just like, didn't I reduce you to 0 HP? And the cutscene starts with me getting my ass whooped?
You kind of do win the fight though. You just takes a long time to do it, and I guess you don't like that. You start losing, which doesn't make much sense, I agree, but then you do win the fight. You pull down the water tower on top of Rigid, and she can't fight anymore, leading for a way for the party to escape. Just because the cutscenes mess up here and there doesn't mean it's bad game design. The only bad game design I think in this game is some of the battles where the tutorial just ruins everything, and the gacha system, which really isn't too bad in my opinion.
See the problem here, my player agency is being removed. I don't feel like I triumphed at all. I feel like my accomplishment is being ignored in favor of the game telling its own shitty story with its annoying ass characters. And then even if you lose in the gameplay, you get a game over and have to redo the battle just to lose the cutscene anyway. What difference does it make?
Alright, first of all, saying you don't just, like, you lose in the cutscene and just your planet agency is removed just so the story can tell the story of its own bad characters and bad story, that's just subjective. Tons of people, almost everyone, loves the story and characters of this game. A lot of people do. So that's clearly subjective, and you know what? So far, you've given no reason, and I mean no reason throughout these whole 2 videos why a character's bad. Besides some shots at Rex, you have really not explained at all why you think the story's bad, or why you think the characters were bad at all. So just, gosh, I would be a little more like, I'd understand more if you would actually talk about why you think the characters and the story is bad, but you have really yet to do that at all. Besides talk about how the gameplay and story don't add up in your eyes, like the Ludicrous of Dissonance or whatever you called it, you haven't really talked about the gameplay or the story at all. Gosh, and then you say, what difference does it make when you lose in the battle, but then lose, quote unquote, in the cutscene? It moves the plot along. That's the whole point of cutscenes to begin with, is to you get past a battle so you can move the plot along. So yes, there is a difference.
I'm not saying that the game should have multiple routes based on whether you win or lose. I'm saying don't have me outright win in the game and then immediately contradict what I did in the game. If you're not supposed to defeat that enemy yet, maybe don't have the player reduce them to 0 HP and maybe have the battle end early, like, I don't know, like the first game did! The blueprint is right there! When you reduce an enemy to 0 HP, that means they're defeated. Not, oh, we're gonna pretend like you didn't just play the game and then have the result be decided in the cutscene instead. At this point, if you're going to ignore the player's input into this interactive medium, why even make it interactive? You have overly long cutscenes that are representative of the entire battle. Why make the player play through a fake battle first? Why make the player play it at all? Why make it a video game at all? If you wanted to make an anime, just make an anime. You're already done. The game has 14 hours of cutscenes. That's enough for 26 episodes and a movie.
All right, it's over. I don't know if I should feel happy or just sad now, but it's whatever. Anyways, I don't really have much to say about this last part besides the stuff I already said. A lot of what you said comes under personal opinion. I can't really say anything about it. But besides something like you don't like it but others love it, that's hollow and stupid for a response video. I know, it's hard to argue with some of this, but I'll still try. First things first, you're getting really mad here. Like, go take a walk or something if this game makes you this mad, or don't make a video about it. Second of all, the characters being bad and the story being bad is all personal opinion, like I said. I know you might say, well, duh, of course, it's my opinion, it's my video. But if that's your reasoning, don't make a video. This video series is supposed to be why you think Xenoblade 2 is a disappointment, and you show why you think that is. But just saying the characters are bad and the story is bad out of nowhere at the end of the video makes no sense. You haven't given any reason why you think the story is bad or the characters, besides a couple of shots at Rex and Tora. You haven't talked in depth about the characters yet. My point is, that line you said should not be here. The line where you say, I don't want to watch this for these dumb characters and dumb story. Save it for your next part if you talk about the story and characters more in depth. There isn't much to say about how you say, like, you lose the battle and then lose in the cutscene, or win the battle, sorry, lose in the cutscene. I mean, I don't like that either, and a lot of people don't. But I think it's more annoying than it is bad. And then you also say, what's the difference? Well, the difference is you progress the plot. That's sometimes the point of boss battles. The cutscene afterward might make you mad, but that doesn't really matter because there is a clear difference between losing in the cutscene and winning in the battle, because afterwards the plot starts to move. And you also use the first Malice fight as an example of losing in the cutscene but winning in the gameplay. Well, that Malice fight, he starts to win because he starts to use his Aegis powers. You as a player don't know it's his Aegis powers, but it's why he starts to winning. And then it gets explained later on, leading the player to think, oh yeah, that's why he started to beat me up on that shit, because he started using his Aegis powers. That might still sound stupid to you, but it's a reason why he won in the cutscene, whether you like it or not. Now, all in all, I do not like winning in the gameplay, but losing in the cutscene. I don't think anyone does, but it doesn't happen as much as you make it out to be. Most of the gameplay you used in the background were fights where you won in the cutscene and won in the gameplay. I say this happens 3/4 of all Xenoblade battles in Xenoblade 2. And compare that to your rule from earlier, that's not math. So that's not a bad game design. To sum everything up, it's clear you don't like this game, and I don't think anything anyone says will ever change that. But it's the same for us Xenoblade 2 fans. We will be the first to tell you how many flaws this game has, but we still love it. And to me, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 isn't better than Xenoblade Chronicles, but Xenoblade Chronicles isn't better than Xenoblade 2. I think they are both amazing games, part of one big story. I did play Xenoblade 2 first, so that might be why I think that is, but it's what I believe. And the reason I think you do not like this game is because I think you went into this game wanting it to be an exact sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles. You wanted it to have the same type of story, characters, and gameplay of your favorite game. And I think your experience suffered from it. I actually think this happens with a lot of diehard Xenoblade fans that are make bad talk on Xenoblade 2. They wanted Xenoblade 2 just to be like Xenoblade Chronicles, but with 2 after it. And they never looked at Xenoblade 2 for what it really was. Not an exact sequel, but a continuation of a great story that spans multiple universes. That's what it looks like, at least. I could be totally wrong, though. Once again, I want to thank you for not being one of those people who just say Xenoblade Chronicles 2 bad on Twitter and actually putting time and effort to make a video series, and actually putting time and effort to play the game. I again respect your opinion of this game and understand why you don't like it. It's just one of my favorite games and I wanted to defend it. Because this game is amazing and I didn't want a new Xenoblade player to see your videos and think Xenoblade 2 sucks without like finding out for themselves. And dude, very well you could probably make a response video to this one and destroy me on every point I try to bring up against you, because this is one of my first videos ever, and like I said, I'm using a headset mic. I'm not the best knowledge when it comes to Xenoblade games either, so yeah. Anyways, I wish you luck, and bye.